Hello and welcome to Free Hit, an FPL podcast. I'm your host, Chris, joined as always by my co-host, Jace. It was or still is, I guess. We're kind of in the middle of a very strange double game week 37, and in some ways I think just feels a bit anticlimactic, both from a Premier League standpoint and an FPL standpoint, with City's 2-0 victory over Spurs today. How are you feeling after I guess both FPL and fandom after today?
I was upset that we gave away the second goal. I mean, Chris, if you look at the statistics, this is just like the Arsenal, and this is just like the Arsenal game in that we lead every category from the stats except for balls put in the back of the net, which is obviously the only one that matters, right? So I just don't understand where this energy and effort was the last four games of the season from
Yeah.
Tottenham. But I mean, you summed it up. The way I feel about the outcome of this game is kind of the way I feel about FPL right now. It's like, it just feels weird. I'm kind of ready for this thing to be over.
Yeah, I especially feel that way, and I'll get into it. But I'll just say on the Spurs front, I was really impressed with you guys today. I mean, Postecoglou did some weird stuff with like Sarr kind of like
Yeah.
pressing the forward line. It seemed to be very effective up until the first goal, and Spurs definitely had chances. I know Son had the one-on-one. He also had kind of the low cross into the box.
Kulusevski had two, and listen,
you guys are right there.
We've been begging Postecoglou to give Van de Ven time in the inverted left winger role, right? Like, it's been on Twitter for the last 6 or 7 weeks, and he hasn't done it, but he chooses this game to do it, and it's like, mate, give someone some credit here. Like, we could have been doing this, it seems like, for the last fucking 4 weeks, and you have the biggest fucking striker in the world.
Yeah.
And give up a set piece goal, but yet we'll let anybody and their brother score on us on a set piece against any other team. I don't get it, man. I just don't get it. But glimpses of hope, I guess, for next season, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, Van de Ven is clearly very good and very fast.
Yeah.
Two things that make for a good Premier League center back. So he'll only get better. And I thought, yeah, to your point on the in the left back role, I don't know if he was inverted or he was just playing left back.
I guess it is kind of different because, only Poro was the only one doing the whole inverted thing, I guess.
Yeah, Poro came inside.
Yeah, he plays with two inverted backs, right? Like, that's his thing. Yep. So I guess, maybe he didn't actually invert, but whatever. He got forward, Yeah.
Let's switch over to FPL. How was your game week? You said also anticlimactic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on 101 points, and then you get the minus 16 on top of that. And, like, my rank is virtually unchanged. And after taking a minus 16, you think that at this point in time it would be changed at some point, but I'm still like 450k, so still under the 500k live right now. And yeah, like you said, anticlimactic. I know you were frustrated with the availability stuff.
Extremely.
Suffer from that with the Newcastle news of Wilson and Isak both quote unquote sick. We'll see how much of that we see is true, when the game comes up tomorrow. But I'm on 101. I think I'll finish maybe around 120 before the minus 16. So about where I thought I'd finish. But I just thought there'd be more into this. But all of my points have come from City. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, I got 27 from Guardiola, 12 from Haaland, 12 from De Bruyne. I mean, they scored fucking more than half my points.
Yeah, I mean, we talked last week about Poro versus Guardiola, and I think the answer was just both guys. Poro with the goal contribution, and what does he have? 11 points. It's a very solid game week. Good, but Guardiola is 27 points. I mean, that's one of the highest single FPL game week, even though it's a double game week points totals of the season. I feel like that single-handedly saved what was a horrendous week for me from being just like an all-timer, he, of anyone, at least really delivered.
Yeah, a lot of the game week will depend on if Isak plays tomorrow or not, because obviously he's the captain, so hopefully he plays. But even if he does at this point, given that he's been sick the last 2 days, who the fuck knows what kind of shape he's going to be in. So I don't know. I guess I'm not upset, but I can't get hurt at this point. all the assets that could we have played. I mean, I've got Garnacho left to play, Gusto Palmer, Jackson, and Gordon, Isak, and Byrne, who everyone else has. Most of those players, right? There's no real highly owned player that's going to hurt me. So I feel like I'm okay. I just thought it would be better. I thought there'd be more in it, I guess.
Yeah. For what it's worth, I think it is something like 80+% of the top 10K are bench boosting this week. Okay. And so of like active managers, I think even with the chip this week, it was very hard to make up ground unless you got, the captaincy right. Obviously, Holland, kind of the leader in the clubhouse with 2 goals right now. Gavar.
Yeah.
You couldn't have had both Foden and De Bruyne if you had those 2 guys. So you're basically trading points between those 2. And then you're right. To your point, there wasn't really any other asset that overperformed expectations or really lit it up yet. Now we still have some games to go. Like you mentioned, Chelsea, Newcastle being probably the most prominent teams in that group. But yeah, well, let's talk about your -16, and then I want to talk about my -16. How did you kind of land on the guys from the show we did last week versus who you ultimately went with?
Yeah, I don't know that I changed a lot, man. I think I went pretty much according to plan. I went Vicario over Nick Pope, and thank God, right? Because Dubravka actually started, but I'm not
that
mad.
was a good call.
You know what I mean? Like I'm okay with that because Vicario could have cleaned today potentially, right? Could have cleaned against Burnley. So I like the potential there, and I knew he was going to start. So that's kind of what I ultimately defaulted to for all this, minus Gusto, because I already had Gusto. So it was like, well, I'm not going to do anything with him. But for the most part, I tried to just go with people who I knew were going to play, and that's just kind of how it shook up. Obviously, with Isak news, who would have forecasted that they were going to get sick?
Yeah, I mean, you can't do anything about that. But I did notice that you, speaking of like going by the book, the only thing I saw that was really different was Gordon. Did you transfer in Gordon for Saka?
I did. Yeah.
That was the one because
Saka. And we talked about it texting. I guess we didn't talk about it on the show, but I told you that's how I was going to end up after we recorded because of the Saka news that we got, whether he wasn't going to be fit or not. And again, same philosophy, right? I wanted someone who was going to play, and it made more sense for me to go Gordon in my head because he had 2 fixtures to make up for the -4, whereas someone like Havertz only had the 1 fixture. But you went that route, didn't you?
Yeah, I went Havertz. I went from Saka to Havertz because, well, let's just talk about my transfers. Actually, if I could just hog the mic, because you're right. I think I went mostly template, and I had just a horrible experience. So here's what happened. I threw out some differentials from last week. I said Richarlison and Callum Wilson are not being owned or talked about enough relative to their goal scoring odds. Callum Wilson was the third highest goal scoring odds by the bookies last week across the 2 games. Really low ownership, and I thought a lot of people would have the defender, Isak, and Gordon triple up and be unable to get there. Thought he was going to be a nice differential. Richarlison was the other guy I was looking at, same reason. So I'm thinking about these guys, and I don't go early on them. I sit on it all week, and I wait for the press conferences because I am a good and smart FPL player. Okay. Press conferences happen. Postecoglou says, same team as last week. Eddie Howe doesn't say anything related to Callum Wilson, but there was a Newcastle fan account during the week that tweeted that Callum Wilson possibly had a hamstring injury. Okay. And then that fan account later in the week said, nope, he's all good. No problem. So between those 2 transfers, I went ahead and made them. About 2 hours after that, it turns out that Richarlison was not called up for the Brazil national team due to a season-ending injury that his club had not disclosed. And at first I thought maybe it's one of those things where he's going to play through it until Tottenham are either in or out of the Champions League, and then he's going to need surgery over the summer. But the more I read about it, the more it was like clear that he was just out. And Postecoglou just did not say anything about it in the press conference. Yeah. So I needed another midfielder. I have 3 Newcastle, so I can't get Gordon. I have 3 City, so I cannot get Kevin De Bruyne. And I have 3 Chelsea, so I can't punt on Madueke or something like that. I've already transferred Garnacho out. So I start looking at Bruno Fernandes. So then I go back and read Ten Hag's press conference comments. And Ten Hag says, Fernandes is on the pitch this week. He's in training. I said, okay, well, he sat out last week. He's in training this week. Must be good to go. Bruno doesn't play, of course, and is potentially also out for the second game, although now that's kind of sort of in question there as well. So in the midfield, that is a -8 from Garnacho, who had 2 points, to Richarlison, who had 0, to Fernandes, who had 0 on one single position. As we know, Callum Wilson did not play, just was not in the squad whatsoever. That was a 0-pointer from Solanke, who scored to Callum Wilson. So if you take out the Gvardiol transfer, my total net transfers, I am plus 16. Gvardiol is 27. So if you take those transfers out, I'm -11 on transfers, and I'm playing 13 guys in a week where everybody's bench boosting. And it was so unbelievably frustrating that I feel like we have to consider what's in scope for this game. And I feel like trying to pick players that score goals, get assists, and get clean sheets, having debates about those players, watching the games, right? Like, that's what you and I enjoy.
Yeah.
What to me is outside of the scope of the game, and where it's like very frustrating, is trying to read whether each manager in the Premier League is lying or telling the truth, and whether or not a guy will play during the week or not. It's just not fun. It's just not fun. It's not a fun part of the game. I would really love FPL to get away from the current pricing model, because that's what locks you into a specific transfer, right? Because prices change daily. So as soon as you make a transfer, it's final. I would love to see transfer windows where player prices are fixed during that specific window. You can kind of make transfers up until the deadline, and then all of your transfers are processed at once. That would have avoided at least the Richarlison thing. You can't do anything about the actual managers lying, but from a game standpoint, I think you can sort of reconfigure that system.
Yeah.
The other thing, I just don't understand why we can't adopt an NFL like model. And maybe I'm the ignorant American.
Careful.
You think so? Am I the ignorant American pushing ideas on English soccer?
If you increase the tone of your voice and start yelling, then you will sound like the ignorant American. We're always the loudest in the room.
Listen, I respect the English game. There's there's the pyramid, there's pro rel. There's obviously a much closer relationship between the fans and the club than I think exists in the United States. But the NFL is a little bit different, because each of the 32 teams in the NFL are owners of the league itself, and they therefore are able to act in a collective fashion to improve the product that they put on the field. So when we talk about refereeing, when we talk about injury reporting, right, these are things that all 32 teams can agree on, because it's affecting every team equally, and it's good for the league, right? It kind of helps protect the integrity of the game week in, week out. The Premier League is this collection of 20 independent clubs that changes every year, and they agree to play each other for TV rights, but I feel like they have yet to figure out how to make decisions as a collective, which is why the salary cap stuff is such a mess. Why Nottingham Forest goes and hires Mark Clattenburg to advise them on refereeing decisions. I mean, Nottingham Forest is not interested in improving officiating in the Premier League. They are interested in improving the calls that Nottingham Forest get. in the Premier League, right? And it's the same thing with injury reporting, because there's sort of no collective thinking here. There's been no effort. There's no incentive for each individual club to report injuries accurately, because at the end of the day, they're an individual entity. They're not necessarily behaving as a collective. So I think that's where I have a problem with it, is that clearly a practice report and a match fitness report, similar to the NFL model, where each team's disclose, did a player practice, yes or no, every day, and 2 days before, is he probable, doubtful, questionable, whatever, English connotations of those you want to use. And then if you don't do that, you get fined, and that's it. End of story. Like it's incredibly easy to do. And yeah, from my standpoint, obviously it was extremely frustrating this week, and really kind of took me out of the game. So I'll end my rant there. Would love to hear your thoughts, but I thought the whole situation was just absurd.
No, I think you made a good point, and it did seem like it was, especially your situation, you were just kind of getting hoed left and right here by undisclosed injuries, whatever. But I think at the end of the day, the game is fun when we can make informed decisions about the decisions we make in the game, right? And when the managers withhold information or disclose like just patently wrong information, it really takes the fun out of the game. Not that the managers are at all concerned with how we experience FPL, right? We totally understand that. That's not the issue. But I think the game rules and boundaries around it could be improved based on the manager's behavior. Especially Eddie Howe, like I said, we talked last week about why I got out of Gordon. It was because Eddie Howe was like, oh, he's going to be out for the rest of the season. He had a big flag by his name. He has not missed a game. Gordon has been doubtful probably more than any player in FPL that has played. There's got to be a record there somewhere, and it's not even that he's withholding information. He's spewing stuff that he knows is incorrect. There's no way Gordon made a miraculous recovery the next week. I think the only game he missed was a fucking red card that he got. And even then, people were making jokes that he was going to magically show up in the game, right? I just don't get it. But I think there's a huge difference in withholding information and just lying. And at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter because there's no regulation around it anyways. But bottom line is we need the info to play the game, and we're not getting the info, especially these last couple of weeks, it seems. So it's
just to clarify, too, I don't know how you feel, but I am not mad at Eddie Howe. If I was manager of Newcastle or any other team in the Premier League, I would lie my ass off.
And that's what I was saying, right?
Press conference.
Yeah. His motivations are not FPL targeted, right? They're strictly around giving him some sort of advantage over the team he's about to play or the table or whatever. So I totally agree with you, right? It's not his quote unquote fault, but it's just the way that the system is set up. So I agree with you. I definitely think there could be improvements to the framework of the game to allow for this type of unclarity around team news and all that stuff, especially when you just have such little time and information to go on half the time anyways, right? You get one free transfer. It's not like we're making 20 transfers in between games. I mean,
unless you're on the bench boost, then you've got 15 spots to fill, which it makes this, that's part of the reason why this was so bad this particular week. It would not have been a big deal if these guys were doubts or whatever in a normal game week. But for us, we have to get all 15 players on the pitch and
open the transfer window, close the transfer window each time. That should be the end of it, right? It shouldn't be this whole overnight price rise or whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't even know if you and I were really worried about price. It wasn't even that. It was just this whole thing of who's even going to be available. So
well, that's why the pricing itself, we both agree, is a stupid mechanic, right? Too, and the timing of your transfer between the end of one game week and the next game week, to me, shouldn't be part of the game, right? You should make a transfer on Wednesday or make a transfer on it doesn't matter, right? And trying to do this very weird, strange risk reward system where maybe I'll get this guy early if he's not hurt and he'll play, and I'll save 0.1 on my team value and some weird algorithmic pricing thing that no one can actually like explain to you what's happening or why, like the whole system I think falls apart. And there's some things I wish they would just let the game be the game, i.e. picking the players that end up on the field and get rid of the stuff that does not make the game fun, like price changes and like these kind of again, once a transfer is fixed or if you make a mistake or something like that, not being able to correct it before the next few games kick off, I think is silly. From an FPL standpoint, from the things that we can control, I think the biggest learning that I had from this that I'm going to take into the postmortem next week is I am very interested in playing the bench boost in game week 1, getting it the fuck out of the way, then just like playing, because
I know a lot of people that save them
until
game week 38. They're like, every year I wait until the very last game week, and that's when I play my bench boost, or that's when I play my wild card. And I think for very similar reasons, and it's just like one of those where either A, the outcome, or B, like you never know the outcome, and then it's fine. But yeah, I mean, what a nightmare it's been getting players on the pitch. I mean, I'm still glad we went with the strategy that we did, right? Or at least I did, where I wild carded in 34 and then bench boost in 37, because those wild card points are really what got me where I am.
Right.
Or free hit. Those free hit points are what got me where I am right now anyways. So obviously I guess the pepper just wasn't in the shaker here for this game week, but I don't know. I mean, we like I said, I gave myself a chance to win the lottery, right? I made a minus 16 worth of transfers to try and haul, and I got north of 100 points with 6 players still to play. So at the end of the day, at least we gave it a go. I mean, what are you on right now?
Not 100 points. I am on
close.
Let's see. What is it? 87 minus 16. I'm on 71. My team would have been better without the bench boost, honestly, or if to your point, if I had saved it for 38, it would have been better. But the reason I like game week 1 is it's the only time you can play 2 chips in 1 week, if you think about it, because your game week 1 team is essentially a wild card and you can play the bench boost. Whereas at other points in the game, you can never play the wild card and the bench boost at the same time, which was something that we've talked about a lot, right? When we were looking at the bench boost versus free hit game week 34, there was like an argument of like your wild card and your bench boost are closer together, so maybe that makes more sense. And I think you can't get any closer than having them both available in the same week. Now, on the flip side, you just don't have the information of the team sheets because it's a new season, there's new players, potentially new managers, etc. But for the most part, I think you can get there. So that's something I'm going to be like 70 to 80% on. And if it's not week 1, it's going to be like week 3 after I've seen a team sheet. I make 2 transfers in game week 3 and then play it. Something along those lines. Because this has really taken, I think, the fun out of the game right at the end of the season, having this kind of week and this kind of frustration.
Yeah, I think it's the same that can be said with the result today. It's just kind of like, well, said you're going to win the championship next weekend, right, for the 4th time in a row. And it's just kind of like, this was fun denying Arsenal the trophy, but now it's just kind of sad because City are going to win it for a 4th time in a row. It's still kind of deflating. But maybe that's just what happens at the end of the season when you don't have a team anywhere near the top 2 spots. I don't know.
You guys especially have had, I think, a rougher end of the season because you were kind of right there for UCL and then kind of are now locked into Europa League. I mean, speaking of game week 38, because we want to talk about some potential transfer ideas. The 2 teams at the top with something to play for are City and Arsenal, right? Yep. There's nobody else in the top 5 that actually has anything to play for. Liverpool are locked into 3rd, Villa 4th, and Tottenham 5th. And then the other teams are all Europa League. So that is Newcastle United, Chelsea, and Manchester United. So outside of those 5 teams, there's a lot of teams with not a lot to play for, with the relegation battle kind of settled. And typically, I think in the past few seasons, we've seen a lot more action in game week 38, both at the top and at the bottom of the table.
Yeah.
But from an FPL standpoint, obviously, I think when we're thinking about transfers, we want to keep those 5 teams in particular top of mind.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there any sort of read or plan that you have going into this week yet in terms of I'm going to be really aggressive, I'm going to take a bunch of hits, or I'm going to be really conservative, or kind of where's your head at?
No, I think I'm heavy on the assets you need to be heavy on outside of, I guess, Arsenal, because I got 3 City assets, and I'm confident all 3 of them are going to play, and less KDB is actually injured because he did go off a little early there, right? He went off in like the 65th or 70th minute. But Guardiola and Holland are going to play. KDB will play if he's healthy. Garnacho is going to play. Gabriel is going to play. You know what I mean? Like Tottenham, Chelsea, City, Newcastle. I think everybody's going to play. So I'm not really worried about that. And then again, Spurs are going against already relegated Sheffield United, and I don't care how hard they try, we'll be fine. I mean, I don't know, man. I'm probably going to bring him. I might take a -4, but I'm not going to take anything more than a -4. But I would like to bring Havertz in, and yeah, maybe a differential. But I think Vicario's fine in goal against Sheffield United. I think.
Yep.
I don't know, man. I just don't know that after this week, I want to do this game again where I'm like trying all these fun things just to be thwarted because someone's sitting the bench or someone's injured or someone's sick or whatever. I mean, I think I have a good enough team because we made those transfers last week based on this game as well. You know, I mean, we had game week 30 in mind when we were making these transfers, so I feel like I'm all right. I would have liked to have kept Saka if I could have, but at the end of the day, like I said, he didn't do anything other than get a yellow card and limp off the field like he always does when he doesn't score. But so Gordon could still come good for that. But I like having Arsenal assets, so I'm probably bringing Havertz and maybe Ben White if I'm feeling frisky. But I kind of like where I'm at. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think you bring up a really good observation here, which is that we loaded up on teams with double game weeks, and those teams were City, Chelsea, Newcastle, Man United, and then also Brighton and Tottenham. And 4 out of 6 of those teams, plus Arsenal, all have something to play for. And I'm actually going to put Liverpool in that group too, because it's Klopp's last game. So I think that their 11 is going to start. Of that list, I think I'm actually most concerned about Spurs now being locked into the 5th position. I could see Postecoglou playing a lot of youth. So I'm with you. Your City guys are fine. Your Newcastle guys are fine. Your Chelsea guys are fine. You know, pending availability. United even too. Like Onana is fine, right? But do you think there's a chance that we don't see Son, we don't see Madison, we don't see Porro next week?
No, I think everyone will play because Postecoglou has said multiple times that he wants to win. Like if anything has been proven this week, it's that Ange did not like any of the narrative, and you could say he's posturing Postecoglou, if you will. But for the most part, I think he showed that he wants to win. He got into an altercation with a fan at the game because they were cheering against Spurs. I don't know if you saw that, but there's no doubt in my mind he's not putting his strongest team out there against Sheffield on Sunday because he wants to go out on top. And I think if he wins, he set some record for a Spurs boss in their first season with most points or like whatever, the narrative around he's got more than Arteta did in his first season and all that's well and good, but he wants to go out on a win. So I'm not concerned at all about my Spurs assets. Porro, Sonny play, Vicario plays.
Yeah.
Yours may switch out. Like if you're on Johnson, Kulusevski may come in for him or whatever, but I don't know that we have the personnel to get too tricky with our attackers. So
yeah, I think I would keep them but not captain any of them. Like I think some people could look at Son as a captain punt away Sheffield in 38.
I think it's totally fair.
And he's probably coming off after 60, right? I mean, pending the score. I just don't expect any of those guys to play 90. Even if they do start for no reason.
Yeah, fair enough. So who are you looking at bringing in? Because you already brought in Havertz, which we talked about last week. So
Yeah.
who's on the list?
Well, I think you mentioned one of them, which is Ben White, who's a guy that has been a little bit difficult to get to all season, just because of the configuration of teams with Arsenal assets. Now, without Salah in a lot of teams and triple ups on the double game week 37 teams that we just mentioned,
Yeah.
a lot of people are going to have room for an Arsenal asset. It feels weird if you only have one free transfer in game week 38 to use it on a defender. Like that's the part of me that's like, oh, am I sure I want to do that? But I think he's such a good asset, and I feel like I can almost guarantee an Arsenal clean sheet.
Yeah.
Knock on wood in game week 38. Plus,
Yeah,
he was
absolutely.
very, very attacking this week again. I mean, he could easily have a Gavardiol like
Yeah.
game, 15 points, etc. So I think he's probably the best defensive transfer. I can't really see going anywhere outside of Arsenal because people are already on City, and that would
Yeah.
be kind of the other fixture that's really good.
I think we both mentioned that if we could have benched Salah this game week and had him for 38, we would have liked that, right? Like that would have been a
Yeah.
cool asset to have because he totally would have been a differential in the top 100K at that point for sure. So are you thinking about maybe bringing Salah in for a hit, or you think there's not enough juice there to squeeze?
I think Salah this week as a captain is actually a great pick.
Okay.
I would totally support someone doing that if you have the funds. I think again, like a lot of people have configured their teams to be heavier on these double game week assets, which
Yeah.
spreads your cash around, and it's just I don't know that I would take a hit. Two moves to get Salah back when I think there are some other midfielders in the game. But if you already have him, if you held him, I think he's absolutely a great start. The midfield guys that I think a lot of people might talk about are the Palace duo. And again, this is outside of, I think Havertz for me is probably the best midfield pick for game week
Yeah.
38. Home Everton playing out of position number 9, along with the City guys, Foden and De Bruyne, especially Foden. But Aston Villa go to Selhurst Park with nothing to play for. I
Yeah.
think similar to Spurs, this is going to be an opportunity where Emery is going to play. You might see Morgan Rogers and Duran starting up top.
Duran.
Duran, what a
MLS's own,
brace from
dude.
him.
Chicago
Yeah,
Fire.
yeah, incredible comeback for Villa to get the point
Yeah, it
that
was
they
a fun
needed.
game to
Yeah,
watch yesterday.
yeah,
I mean, it was one of the more fun games I've watched at this side of Christmas. I feel like. I mean, it was really entertaining stuff. And granted, there's always controversial calls, but I thought for the most part they got them right. So it was pretty. That was a pretty good time, you know.
yeah. It was, I think, in a way, emblematic of Liverpool's season, where they were
Yeah.
playing a team that was pretty good and they created a lot of chances, but they gave up enough chances that they just got punished. I think they'll need
Yeah.
to figure out something defensively next year to improve.
Yeah.
But Eze, Elise, I think between those two guys next week, both of them are solid picks.
Absolutely.
I lean a little bit more Elise. He's the number one scorer this season in points per match in all of FPL. I have no idea what he's going to be priced at next season, or if he's still going to be at Crystal Palace.
At Palace, yeah, that's the thing.
It's the last time to get Elise at his current price point. And I think again, Villa this week is going to be a great fixture. So outside of Havertz, I think he would be my number one midfield transfer.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, I think there's a world where I could sell Holland for Mateta to bring in Salah in the midfield or something like that. Kind of
Yeah.
crazy. Mateta's been on a tear as well. So Palace is another one of those teams that have just been a blast to watch the last 4 or 5 game weeks. A lot of fun. Sucks not owning them, but also I'm not mad that I don't own them because who owns them at this point in our kind of immediate vicinity? So good point though on whether or not they stay. But if they do stay, I mean Glasner's going to have his hands full next season. I mean they could be good, like really good. They play fun football.
The 11 on the field for me is a top half team.
Yeah.
And Palace have finished between, what is it, like 12th and 15th, basically like clockwork every year.
Like
right?
clockwork, yeah. I think, is it 12th or 13th? It's one of the two where they have finished there every season, or they finish there in that position more than any other Premier League club or something like that. It's crazy.
Yeah, it just seems like their young players got really good at the same time, and their recruitment between getting Glasner, first of all, as manager, the wing back from Genk, Munoz, and then plus Wharton from Blackburn, who's been exactly what they needed in the midfield as a guy that passes the ball forward. I don't remember the last time they had a central midfielder that passed the ball forward, right? And it's just like making such.
Isn't that just a magical thing?
Yeah, right. It's he has been. People talk about Elise and Eze and of course like Mateta now too. But watching the games, I think he is also kind of an unheralded part of Palace's improvement. It'll be interesting to see where they land next year. But again, this might be potentially your only chance to own a Crystal Palace asset in the kind of the form and the shape as the team is currently, which I think is kind of fun. How about forwards? Is there anyone that you're looking to move on from or move to?
No, we talked about just now Mateta. There's a world where I, bring him in for one of my 3 forwards. But again, that's crazy talk. I don't know. I kind of don't want to give some of this stuff away because I feel like at the end of this week, Chris, we're going to be within like 15 points of each other. And, there's a world where I can still come from behind and get you in one of the mini leagues. So I'm a little hesitant to go over some of this stuff. But I think Mateta is really the only forward that I really want. If I couldn't, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like he's definitely in the best form of any forwards. And like you said, he's got Elise and Eze feeding him balls left and right. I don't know that I want Watkins for the exact reason that you mentioned, but he actually is the most informed forward in PL right now. So in FPL right now, which is cool. They are playing Villa, but it's at home. Sellers is a really tough place to play, but I don't see any other forwards that I want to have. Do you?
So let's assume
Muniz, I don't know.
Muniz was the guy away Luton who have already been relegated. I could see that as like a 4-3. And keep in mind that they are not technically relegated. They have, like a 12 goal.
Mathematically, they are not relegated. That's correct.
Yeah, so they would have to win by a significant margin and hope that Forest lose by a significant margin. Obviously, that won't happen, but there is a world in which Luton comes out and plays murder ball. I mean, they kind of have been all season anyway. This could be a 4-3 or 5-4 or just some like absolutely absurd scoreline. I do think it's going to be a tough place for Fulham to play with Luton on the final day in the Premier League. The fans are going to be excited and want to support their team for that one. But he's a guy I could see. The other one I was thinking about was Cody Gakpo. Seems to have overtaken Darwin Núñez as the starting number 9 for Liverpool. He's been in great form. It's a very risky transfer. I don't think I would personally go there, but in terms of ceiling, again, that home Wolves fixture for Liverpool could be fireworks given its Klopp's last game.
Not the fireworks that Arsenal tried to set off outside of City's supposed hotel last night. Actual fireworks.
On-field fireworks.
On-field fireworks,
Off-field fireworks.
Yeah.
But I could see him. But to your point, like everybody owns Holland, everybody owns Isak, and some people have Jackson, who I think Bournemouth home. That's a great pick as well. Yeah. So he's not really a transfer in for a lot of people that already have.
But he's definitely a hold though, and that's kind of where I'm at. Right, is I've got Holland, Isak, and Nick Jackson.
Yep.
So Isak, Brentford away. If I'm playing it safe, he's probably the one I transfer out from Mateta. But if I'm playing it risky, like I said, maybe it's a Holland so I can generate some funds to bring Salah in or something. I don't know. I might get tricky, Chris. We'll see.
For what it's worth, Holland's expected point total is significantly higher than any other forward in the game.
Yeah, but that's going to come from the last 2, right? And then the 2 before that, right? I get it. But again, everybody's got Holland.
Yeah, I think yes, but for me, must win against one of the most out of form teams in the league with nothing to play for at home. That is the time to captain Holland. It's not the 2 sort of tricky away fixtures.
It's no fun captaining Holland anymore, though. It's not fun. It's not. This is what. So the first time I played FPL with my friends was 3 or 4 years ago, and I finished 5 millionth or something like that, and it was because I refused to get Salah because everybody had him, and I didn't understand the intricacies of the game, right? And it was not fun. It wasn't fun owning Salah or captaining because that's what everyone else did, and I was like, this is stupid. This makes no sense. So I gave up on the game. But it feels a lot like that with Holland now at this point in captaining, and when he's back, it's like this isn't fun. This is just like there, he's your auto captain. Try and get some differentials to return like Guardiola, but now it's Guardiola too. So it's like, where's the next haul? I feel like I'm fucking trying to find the next Apple or something like that. It's not fun.
Does it make you feel different that, like, based on our conversations, I think we are having more discourse about Holland captain or not? I've not captained in the last 2 weeks. You didn't captain
I haven't either
this week. So captaining Holland this week, to me, it feels like a conscious choice to captain Holland because I think he's the best captain, not necessarily the set it, forget it auto captain, which I agree with you. When you're kind of in that mindset, it takes the fun out of the game. But if you look at the player, the fixture, the especially West Ham, who they're playing against, I think they have like the highest expected goals conceded out of anybody in the last few weeks or whatever. I mean,
I think they're going to get slaughtered. Yeah. Even if we drew today, I feel like City would go ahead on goal differential. I know Everton aren't going to put up too much of a fight at the Emirates, but I think City's going to score 5 or 6.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking.
Yeah, I could see that as well. So speaking of captaincy, why don't we just wrap up and talk about kind of captains? Obviously made a strong case for Holland. We talked a little bit about Salah. If you don't go Holland and let's say you don't do this double move for Salah, is there anybody else that's on your radar for next week in terms of captaincy?
No one that I have right now. Like I said, you'd mentioned the Salah thing, but I think Holland is like you said, the best captain candidate. KDB, if he's healthy, I might take a punt on because there's a world where City scores 6 and he has all assists, right?
Yep.
So those are probably the two who I am in between right now, given my current team. Because like you said, even outside of the last game of the year, playing the game, not the occasion, they still have probably the best fixture of my players outside of Arsenal. So, and Everton haven't been that horrible the last 4 or 5 weeks. So that's
they've been pretty good defensively.
So maybe I'll take a punt on KDB if he's healthy, but I got to be sure about that. I paying attention to the pressers and stuff. But what about you? Who are you thinking of captaining?
I'm with you. I think it has to be a City, Arsenal, or Mo Salah this week. But if you wanted to go different, I could see a Foden or De Bruyne captaincy, which you mentioned, to have a piece of the City 5-0, 6-0, whatever. But not Holland. I could also see Kai Havertz. I think I'm really high on him as a potential High on Kai. That's right. I think he's tricky because the ownership is so low that I think his ownership could be much higher next week, but it's almost not worth captaining him because I'm getting most of his points as like an owner this week. But you never know. I mean, I think there's a world where Kai Havertz braces next week. Trossard too, his 5 goals and 7 starting on the left wing seems to be fairly nailed for Arsenal.
Trossard's not going to get the full 90 though, which
that's the problem with him.
So I think Havertz is, if you're going to captain from someone from Arsenal, it would be Havertz for sure.
I think I would put Holland 1, Havertz 2 because he's an out of position mid playing striker, then Salah, then Foden, then KDB. Do you agree with that list? I don't know where you're at. Guys.
Yeah, I think so. I think those are the captains. Like you said, you wouldn't captain Sonny against Sheffield away.
Palmer is home to Bournemouth too, actually.
You guys have something to play for, but Bournemouth have shown they're not like going to roll over.
Yeah, they're a good team. I agree.
So I would still say Arsenal have the better fixture and definitely more to play for than what Chelsea do. So,
yeah. Awesome. Well, I think that's all we have for you guys this week. Kind of an abbreviated Game Week 38 preview since only a few teams have stuff to play for. But we'll be back. you and I haven't talked about it. Actually, what are you doing for the games on Sunday too, by the way?
My buddies and I, we're going to put as many of them on screens as we can
Nice.
at my buddy's house. We'll probably have Tottenham, City, and Chelsea up, and then I don't know that I can bear to watch the Arsenal match, so I may just leave that one on the replay. But are they going to do Goal Rush this week, you think?
Oh yeah, I'm sure they are.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll probably have that up on a fourth TV somewhere. But what are you doing anything fun or?
I'm not sure yet. I might. Last year, the Always Cheating podcast had a meetup in Brooklyn. I went there. But one of the guys, I think Brandon, Josh lives in New York in Brooklyn, but Brandon moved to Canada. So I'm not sure that Josh is going to host it or not. And I went last year and I was really shy. I didn't want to walk up to these like quote unquote famous people and be like a total nerd. But if I go again this year, I would just be going by myself. So I would, maybe try and chat up a few folks.
Plug the pod.
Yeah, plug the pod. Exactly. Hashtag free hit. Yeah. So we'll see. I'm kind of surprised you don't want to watch the Arsenal game though, because when City's up 3-0, you'll just get like Arteta angry on the sideline. Like they won't even be broadcasting the game. The camera will just be on Arteta the whole second half. So something to look out for you.
That's true. Yeah. The Arsenal tears of joy. Arsenal tears of sadness, my tears of joy.
But anyway, I'm not sure exactly what we're doing yet, but we are going to have a bunch of post-mortem content coming up. I feel like we've been post-morteming since game week 35, so I might have to go back and kind of listen to our episodes and summarize and take some notes and kind of like figure out where we're at. We got to look at the promoted teams. I also kind of want to do, estimated price points and best players from each team from the past season. So anyway, lots to cover upcoming, but to everyone, good luck with the rest of double game week 37 and game week 38. Just a reminder for our podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe to our show on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you happen to listen. We're also on social on X, Instagram, and Threads at FPL_freehitpod. And join us either next week or sometime in the very near future to start to recap and break down the 2023-2024 Premier League and Fantasy Premier League season. Take care and good luck.